She's been in this industry for over 30 years. It started with Destiny's Child in 1997, a girl group from Houston, Texas that became one of the best-selling groups of all time. And then in 2003, she stepped out on her own, and she has not stopped since. 8 solo studio albums across 22 years. Grammy wins that now total 35, the most in Grammy history by any artist ever. A Forbes-confirmed net worth of $1 billion, sold-out stadium tours on every continent, a Yale University course built around her music, a presidential campaign song, a Peabody Award. And here's the thing about Beyoncé's discography that I think gets lost in the superlatives. Every album is genuinely different from the last, not different in the way artists say they are exploring a new sound and then release the same record with a different producer. Different in the way that each project represents a deliberate, specific argument about music, culture, identity, and power. Each one pushed something forward. Each one landed in a different place than the one before it. And somehow, they have gotten more ambitious over time, not less. At 44 years old, with 35 Grammys and $1 billion, she is still taking risks that younger artists with nothing to lose would hesitate to take. We are waiting for Act 3 right now, holding our breath for whatever genius she is about to drop on us next. And while we wait, I want to go back through all 8 solo studio albums and do something that I think is genuinely worth doing carefully and honestly. I want to rank them by cultural impact, not by which one has your favorite song, not by personal nostalgia, by cultural impact, meaning what did this album actually change? What conversation did it start that was not already happening? What did it do that left a permanent mark? This is a good place to remind you to subscribe. Hit that subscription button. Quick note before we start. I am keeping this to her 8 solo studio albums. I am not including The Lion King, The Gift, which is a commissioned companion album to the 2019 film, rather than a standalone studio record. It is a significant project. Brown Skin Girl alone could anchor a whole other conversation, and actually, I have another video about that specifically if you want to check it out after this one. But The Gift was made in a fundamentally different creative context from the studio albums, so for this ranking, it stays out. To do this, I am using a tier system. S tier at the top, exceptional. A class above everything else. A tier, genuinely era-defining. B tier, strong, important, and honestly underrated in the conversation. And C tier, the least culturally impactful album in this discography. However, this is Queen Bee, so C tier in Beyoncé's discography is still better than most artists' entire careers. Let's be very clear about that before anyone comes to the comments. 8 albums, 3 decades, let's get into it. C tier exists, matters, just not the loudest in the room. The first album in this tier is B-Day. B-Day is Beyoncé being Beyoncé in the most straightforward sense. Released in September 2006 on her 25th birthday, it gave us irreplaceable, genuinely one of the great breakup anthems of the 2000s, Deja Vu, Ring the Alarm, Beautiful Liar with Shakira, which was a commercial hit and a visual moment. It debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, it sold, it toured. The Beyoncé Experience tour that followed was enormous, so why is it at the bottom of this list? Because when you really ask what B-Day changed, about music, about culture, about how the industry operates, the honest answer is not that much. It did not introduce a new Beyoncé. It did not challenge a genre. It did not start a conversation that wasn't already happening. It was Beyoncé executing at an extremely high level within the pop R&B framework she had already built. And that is genuinely impressive. But it is not what we are ranking here. Irreplaceable is a perfect song. I mean that. But Irreplaceable did not change anything. It became beloved, and then the moment passed. That is different from leaving a permanent dent. B-Day lives in C tier, not because it is bad, but because in a discography full of albums that moved the needle, this one mostly held position. And in the Beyoncé catalog, that is the one thing that cost you. B tier, genuinely important, criminally underrated in the conversation. First up in the B tier is 4. 4 is the Beyoncé album that her most devoted fans will actually fight you about. And honestly, they have a case. Released in June 2011, it was the first album she made after firing her father, Matthew Knowles, as her manager. The first album entirely under her own creative control through Parkwood Entertainment. And you can hear it. Rolling Stone called it as eccentric and unmistakably personal as anything Sufjan Stevens cooked up in his bedroom. That is not a sentence critics write about a Beyoncé album, and it tells you everything about what she was actually trying to do here. She submitted 72 songs for consideration. 72. 12 made the standard album. She headlined Glastonbury. Love on Top has a vocal keychain section that is frankly physically unreasonable. Countdown sounds like nothing else she had made before or since. Run the World is a political statement wrapped in a club banger. I Was Here is the kind of song people play at memorials. It went to #1 in 8 countries, sold 4 million copies, and won a Grammy for Best Traditional R&B Performance. So why not higher? Because for all of its artistic ambition, 4 did not crack the culture the way the albums above it did. It did not change how Beyoncé operated in the industry. It did not start a conversation beyond the fan base. The people who love it deeply, but the people who don't have largely moved on. 4 is the most underrated album in her catalog. The one that most honestly shows who she is as an artist when no one is steering her. 4 was genuinely a strong album on all counts, and it probably deserves a video of its own someday. Next under the B tier is I Am, Sasha Fierce. I Am Sasha Fierce is one of the best-selling albums of Beyoncé's career. It won 6 Grammy Awards in a single night in 2010, a record for any female artist at the time. Single Ladies, Halo. 2 of the most recognizable songs of the last 20 years, the Saturday Night Live parody, the Super Bowl performance, the choreography that people are still learning. If you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it. Entered the actual language. The alter ego concept, the split between the vulnerable I Am side and the fierce Sasha side, was a genuine artistic statement. The idea that she needed to become someone else to survive the stage, to survive the scrutiny, that is something she has spoken about since 2003. This album made it the explicit subject of the record itself. So why B tier? Because the dual album structure did not fully cohere. Critics noted at the time that the 2 halves felt like 2 separate EPs rather than one unified statement. The Sasha Fierce side has aged unevenly. And while Single Ladies is a cultural phenomenon, no arguments, the album as a whole did not change how the industry worked the way the S-tier albums did. 6 Grammys. Single Ladies, Halo, B tier? Because B tier in this list means important, but not the thing that changed everything. By the way, a lot of you found this channel through my video on when Beyoncé actually became Beyoncé, where we talked about Beachella and the performances that changed everything. Some of you asked for a video talking about her albums, about the Single Ladies era. This video is that conversation. Be sure to subscribe. A tier, era-defining, changed something real, dangerously in love. Think about the pressure on this album for a second. Beyoncé has just left one of the biggest girl groups in the world. She is not just launching a solo career, she is trying to prove that the solo career is worth having, that she is the artist, not just the lead vocalist. The Destiny's Child could exist without her, but she could also very much exist without Destiny's Child. Crazy in Love answered that question before the album was even out. Those horns, that rhythm, the hair flip run in the video that people are still learning on TikTok, it went to #1 in 12 countries. 8 weeks at #1 on the Hot 100. It was the sound of someone arriving and knowing it. Dangerously in Love won 5 Grammys, 5, for a debut solo album. And it was in the Album of the Year conversation that year, for a debut record. That tells you everything. It established the solo Beyoncé as a complete artist. Crazy in Love became the sonic template for a certain kind of maximalist R&B that the industry chased for years. And it set the expectation, one she then repeatedly exceeded, that a Beyoncé album was an event. That is A tier. That is the announcement of everything that followed. Up next, Renaissance. Renaissance is a love letter. That is the most accurate and most honest way to describe what this album is. Released in July 2022, it is a dance and house album rooted in Black queer ballroom culture, the underground world of drag pageants and ball competitions that gay and transgender Black and Latino communities built as a form of resistance against racism and homophobia from the 1980s onwards. Beyoncé dedicated it to her late Uncle Johnny, who introduced her to house music. She sampled and credited over 100 artists from that world. DJ Honey Dijon, Big Freedia, Kevin Aviance, Moi Renee. Every choice was deliberate and documented. The Human Rights Campaign's director said at the time, With this album, she gave a love letter to a community that has really made the music and culture industry possible. I didn't feel like I had to put on different hats, the black hat or the gay hat. That quote tells you what this album did for the people it was made for. Commercially, #1 on the Billboard 200, $579.8 million grossed on the tour, 56 shows, 2.78 million people attended. The first black female artist to win the Grammy for Best Dance/Electronic Album. Rolling Stone added it to their 500 greatest albums of all time, so why A tier rather than S? Because Renaissance built on frameworks Beyonce had already established, and because it is Act 1 of a trilogy whose full shape we are still inside. Give it 10 more years, this conversation will probably look different, a masterpiece of generosity toward a community that deserved to be seen at this scale. Following that, and also in the A tier, is Cowboy Carter. Cowboy Carter arrived with a question built into it, a question Beyoncé had been sitting with since she performed at the 2016 CMA Awards with the Dixie Chicks, and a significant portion of the country music establishment made clear she was not entirely welcome. The question was simple: whose music is this, anyway? Country music has black roots. The banjo is an African instrument. The blues shaped the entirety of American roots music. Black cowboys were a real and significant part of American history. Their stories erased from the very genre that claimed to tell it. Linda Martell, who features on this album, was the first black woman to perform as a solo artist at the Grand Ole Opry in 1969. And then the industry moved on as though it had not happened. Cowboy Carter put all of that back on the table. First black woman to top the Billboard Country Albums chart in its 60-year history. First black woman to top the Hot Country Songs chart. Grammy Album of the Year. First black woman to win that since Lauryn Hill in 1999. Grammy Best Country Album. First black woman ever. She said in her acceptance speech, "I think sometimes genre is a code word to keep us in our place as artists." The CMA Awards did not give her a single nomination. The contrast between that institutional silence and the Grammy sweep tells you which side of history different institutions chose to stand on. Why A tier rather than S? Because we are still in the ripples of what this album changed. Shaboozey leveraged the spotlight into a record-tying 19 weeks at #1. More black country artists are getting mainstream attention than at any point in decades. The full shape of what Cowboy Carter moved is still forming. A tier for now, check back in a decade. And now for the S tier, exceptional. Changed everything, permanently. First up in this tier is Beyoncé, self-titled.
Wait a minute, I'm sorry. I think Beyonce just released an album on iTunes.
What?
Oh
What?
my God. Oh my God.
Whoa! Whoa!
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God.
December 13th, 2013. Midnight, no warning, no lead single, no press tour, no interviews, no radio campaign, no advance marketing of any kind. She posted on Instagram and said, "The album is out now, 14 songs, 17 music videos, here you go. 430,000 copies sold on iTunes in the first day. 617,000 in 3 days. The fastest selling album in iTunes history at the time. #1 in 98 countries. It temporarily shut down iTunes as people rushed to download it. A Harvard Business School case study was written about the release. Not the music, the release itself. Because what she did that December night was prove that the entire promotional machinery the music industry said you needed, radio campaigns, lead singles, press cycles, TV appearances, was optional. If you had enough cultural gravity, you could go directly to your audience at midnight on a random Thursday, and the audience would have come, and they came, in their tens of millions.
I don't want anybody to give the message when my record is coming out. I just want this to come out when it's ready, and from me to my fans.
She also released on a Friday. Albums had been released on Tuesdays in the US for decades because of how Billboard charts worked. She released on a Friday, and it hit #1 anyway. 2 years later, the entire global music industry changed its release day from Tuesday to Friday. That change, the global release day shift that every artist works within today, happened because of the commercial proof this album provided. Every artist releasing on a Friday is working inside a system she rewired. And then the music itself. Drunk in Love, Partition, Flawless, which samples Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's TEDx talk on feminism, Ghost, Haunted, a complete artistic statement about desire, privacy, power, and what it means to be a fully public person with a fiercely private life. S tier. The album that changed how music is released. Not one of the albums that changed something, the album that changed how this whole game works. And of course, the final album, and undoubtedly in the S tier, is Lemonade. Rolling Stone named Lemonade the #1 album of the 21st century, not the year, the century, and number 32 on the greatest albums of all time. It arrived on April 23rd, 2016 without announcement, an hour-long film on HBO before the album appeared on streaming. 12 tracks, 17-track film. Poetry by Warson Shire woven throughout. Serena Williams dancing. The mothers of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown holding photographs of their sons. A narrative arc moving through anger, denial, apology, emptiness, hope, reformation, forgiveness, resurrection, and redemption. Formation, which had dropped as a surprise the day before the Super Bowl, made conservative politicians call for boycotts and made the Black Lives Matter movement adopt it as a soundtrack. The Peabody Award jury described it as a work that draws from the prolific literary, musical, cinematic, and aesthetic sensibilities of Black cultural producers to create a rich tapestry of poetic innovation, and called it a stunning and sublime masterpiece about the lives of women of color. That is a Peabody jury, not a fan account. Metacritic score, 92. All 12 tracks on the Hot 100 simultaneously. Grammy Best Urban and Contemporary Album. It prompted MTV to bring back the Best Long-Form Video category, which had not been awarded since Madonna in 1991, specifically to recognize it. Adele won Album of the Year over Lemonade at the 2017 Grammys, one of the most disputed Grammy decisions in history, and Adele, standing at the podium, broke her award in half and said, "I cannot possibly accept this. The artist of my life is Beyonce. And this album, to me, the Lemonade album, was just so monumental." She said that in the room that had just denied it, Freedom became Kamala Harris's presidential campaign song in 2024. 8 years after its release, Yale University built a course around it. It is being studied academically, and none of that even touches what it meant personally to the Black women who heard it, who recognized something in it that had never been said quite that directly, at quite that scale. S tier. The defining artistic statement of the most important artist of her generation. The album you put on when someone asks you what Beyonce is actually about. Even if Lemonade is not your personal favorite, you have to respect and acknowledge the body of work. So the full tier list again. C tier, B-Day, a great album, the least culturally significant thing she has made as a solo artist. B tier, For and I Am Sasha Fierce, both important, both undervalued in different ways. For its artistic depth, and Sasha Fierce for everything single ladies alone did to the culture. A tier, Dangerously in Love, Renaissance, Cowboy Carter. 3 albums that each changed something real and specific. The declaration of a solo artist, a love letter to Black queer culture, and the excavation of Black country history. S tier, Beyonce, the self-titled, and Lemonade. 2 albums that between them changed how music is released, what a visual album can be, and what a pop artist can say about race, gender, politics, and personhood, at the highest commercial level simultaneously. Now look, you are going to disagree with some of these. You should. That is the entire point of this video. Tell me in the comments which album you would move and where, and more importantly, tell me why. Because the why is always the interesting part with her. It always has been. But my personal favorites ranking looks very different from this one. If you want to see that video where I stop being objective and just tell you which albums I actually reach for, subscribe. Because that one is coming, and I promise it will start some arguments.